And so I hear you. I've listened to community leaders. We together have seen this, city council members and others, and they're asking for structural change, specifically things that we can deal with. And today, I'm here to talk about the structural change that needs to start with the Minneapolis Police Department. And I can tell you this, I have talked to countless officers. I saw them take a knee out of respect in front of my house yesterday, although there weren't a lot of people there happy with them. But they did it because there's not a one of those officers I talked to that wasn't sickened to the core about what they witnessed. And knowing that when you're part of an organization, the culture permeates all of us. A culture that allows things to happen. A culture where the public cannot trust. And we know that this is systemic, not just in Minneapolis and Minnesota, but it needs to start somewhere. It needs to start where we know things happen. And I know what organizations look like when you're serving. I have served in some of the finest organizations, whether they were public schools or whether it was in the National Guard. And the leadership and the type of things you're committed to make a difference. And they can be generational. We know that deeply seated issues exist. And the reason I know it is, we saw the casual nature of the erasing of George Floyd's life and humanity. We also know by the reaction of the community, they expected nothing to happen. And the reason is because nothing did happen for so many times. I hear and listen and stood next to mothers who lost their children in this and say so many times, as I heard Mayor Carter say, I've heard others echo, being Black should not be a death sentence. And for each and every one of us in law enforcement, you don't get judged right on the spot, especially with the finality of being killed in police custody. So Minnesotans, you can expect our administration to use every tool at our disposal to try and deconstruct systemic racism that is generations deep. And as we move forward, we're going to need to do it with the community. But I think the thing I'm hearing from the protesters is, we're not watching and we don't care what you say. We care what you do. So today, as a step towards that deconstruction of systemic racism, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights is filing a commissioner's charge of discrimination to launch a civil rights investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department. The investigation will review MPD's policies, procedures, and practices over the last 10 years to determine if the department has utilized systemic discriminatory practices towards people of color. Minnesota has one of the strongest civil rights laws in the country. It is illegal for police departments to discriminate against someone because of their race. This is the first time that the state is launching a civil rights investigation into the systemic discriminatory practices of the largest police department in the state. It is also the only investigation surrounding the killings of George Floyd, focusing on the policies and practices implemented by the Minneapolis Police Department. When the Minnesota Department of Human Rights finds civil rights violations, they seek structural change to prevent discrimination from occurring again. The Minnesota Department of Human Rights will also seek an agreement with the Minneapolis Police Department to implement interim measures immediately in advance of long-term measures to address systemic discriminatory practices. This effort is only one of many steps to come in our efforts to restore trust within those communities who have been unseen, unheard, and believe that those that are charged to serve and protect not only don't do that, they work against them. And I say this, as a white man who walks through life with pretty much relative ease, I can't ever know the pain of that Black community members. But I hear you, I'm listening, and one of the things I need to do is use that ability to change and use that ability to build coalitions to make this situation that has become intolerable across the nation, that will not go away with tough talk and more people on the streets in uniform. It will go away with a sense of community you see being displayed up on the state Capitol lawn today, with law enforcement and the people that they serve seeing themselves as neighbor in the same society and the same opportunities for their children.